Wimberg Pride Arts and Entertainment, take one.
Hello and welcome to the Wimberg Pride Arts and Entertainment Show. I'm your host, Darryl J. Jenkins. My guest today is Damon Jones. Damon, welcome to Wimberg Pride.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
All right, tell us a little bit about yourself and your title.
My name is Damon Jones. I am the Executive Director of Westchester Blacks in Law Enforcement. I've been a correction officer for 22 years at the Westchester County Department of Correction, and I'm also the New York representative of Blacks in Law Enforcement of America, national organization of black professional law enforcement officers.
Okay, tell us a little bit more about Blacks in Law Enforcement. What is it exactly that you do?
Blacks in Law Enforcement, we're an organization that try to build a relationship between the community and law enforcement officers. Also to help law enforcement officers of African descent within different departments deal with the different issues in their department. But our main goal is to build a bridge between the communities and law enforcement.
Okay, as you well know, there's been a lot of killing or shootings with police officers. We've had some in Pleasantville, White Plains. Let's talk a little bit about that and touch that subject.
Well, that has been a concern of our organization within the last 5 or 7 years in looking at policy and procedures and how it affects our communities, especially the communities of color, the poor, and the immigrant communities. We've been seeing different incidences where we've been requesting that the 43 municipalities in Westchester County review their policies and procedures, their use of force policies, and how they actually deal with the poor communities and the communities of color. It must be some type of accountability on all levels. We just can't say that it's an isolated incident, because every year we're seeing a high-profile case, whether it's police brutality or it's a questionable shooting of an African-American male in Westchester.
Yeah, that's sad because so often we have to respect our law enforcement agency, and they're there to protect and serve.
That's right. That's right.
Let's break down protect and serve. What is that really about?
Well, it's keeping the community safe. Is keeping good order and goodwill in the community. We see that a lot of that change, the relationship between law enforcement and community changed after 9/11. We became more of a police state. And as you notice, the uniforms changed. It went from the nice shirt with the tie and to military gear. And so the attitude has changed towards the community, because, yes, we should have law enforcement in the community. We should be very vigilant for terrorists, but also we should treat the community with respect. And we should have that type of dialogue, continuous dialogue with the community, because these are the people that we need to solve the crimes. These are the people that will call in and let us know what's going on in the community. But when you break that down, when it's a us against them attitude, when everybody is a subject, it begins to build a lot of hate and it breaks down the communication, and that we do not need that to move forward.
Okay. Now, with blacks in law enforcement, there was a time where there wasn't many blacks in law enforcement.
There's still not many.
Well, there's a lot more than there was in the past, and you know, there's a lot of suits. The Vulcan Society had sued. I'm quite sure blacks in law enforcement have sued. How is that going?
Well, we haven't personally did any lawsuits to get officers on the job. What we did is just outreach because we're in the community. We're always in the community. We do different programs. What do you do when you stop by the police? How do you know your child's in a gang? Are you a victim of domestic violence? So we're always busy in the community. This year we're starting a fingerprinting program for young kids. So we're always in it, and in the process, we're talking to young kids, we're talking to college kids, and we're getting them to get involved and be involved in law enforcement. You know, a lot of young kids have complaints. Well, you know, I feel law enforcement, you know, they don't treat me right. I'm a target. You know, I feel disrespected. So we say, well, the only way you could change the institution, you can't change it from being on the outside. You got to get in it and change the institution from on the inside. And we've been seeing a lot of young kids now. They're taking the applications and they're taking the tests, and they're joining a lot of police departments and the correction department in Westchester County.
Yeah, that was my next question, because a lot of guys that like with what's going on around us. Right. Feel like, well, I don't want to be in law enforcement. I don't want to, you know, work for the police department, you know, and what do we have to do to change that mentality? You know, because law enforcement, I think, is a good job.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Firefighters is a good job. Any working at the school district, it's a good job. Right. You know, and we have to encourage our youth to go after those.
Well, part of that is the culture. You know, I mean, civil service with our youth, especially the African American youth, civil service has not been cool. You know, in the 90s, it was cool to be a correction officer. You know, all the ladies, you know, wanted to talk to a police officer. But these days with these young kids, they're on a different path. And they don't see the job security that's there with being in law enforcement. And the benefits. Right, and being in civil service. There's a lot of benefits. My wife is a detective in Mount Vernon, and we have two children in the early 20s. And they don't look at law enforcement to be an occupation. I mean, that's the thing. So we constantly will have to try to change that image. And the main thing is being in the community and being seen in the community and being part of the community. And when they see that, you know, a lot of young kids will want to be that more often.
Okay. Also, there's a lot of suits and housing, you know. Right. And I think, too, a lot of times, you know, people don't understand that, you know, like I'm from White Plains. Right. You're from Greenburgh, right? Right, right. You're loyal to that community where you come from. Right. You'd rather be there than to go somewhere else. And I think that when government starts making decisions on who should live where and how they should live, I think there's a problem.
Well, and that's... You know, brother, I was just thinking about that because we was discussing the whole HUD situation, and what my whole problem with that is how are you telling me where I should live?
Right. Or even tell the people that live in that community who should live there. Right.
And that's right. And that's right. Now, if all this money is coming in for minorities, you know, why don't you fix up the abandoned buildings in the black neighborhood? Why don't you get the black neighborhood fixed up so middle class people can move in there, so there'll be economic growth in those communities. You're putting houses in communities that don't even need no economic growth just to say that they're integrated. No, listen, man, we watched the civil rights movement. We watched all that. We saw that integration didn't really work. It didn't really work. Right. So now you're saying we're going to move these groups of people over here, but we're still not going to fix up the hood. Right. They're not fixing up the hood. There's a lot of abandoned buildings in the south side of Yonkers. There's abandoned buildings in Mount Vernon. There's abandoned buildings that need to be fixed in Peekskill, and all these little pockets where African Americans are. Right. They can fix up those areas. And let the civil service workers move and sell it to them. You know, because we want to see more of our police officers live in the community that they serve. Right. So fix those buildings up and say, hey, listen, we're going to start an officer next door program to get some of the officers, you know, to stop moving way upstate and taking the money out of the community, taking our tax money way upstate. Bring all that back down. You know, so I think that whole, it's a sham, it's a hoax. You know, but they never really asked the question, what did they do with the first money, with that first batch of money? Where did that go? Right. Nobody asked that question. What happened to the money?
Misappropriated.
You know, why nobody went to jail with that money?
That's right. Nobody was blamed.
No. No.
People's pockets got lined.
That's what I'm saying.
But, moving on, because that was the next thing I wanted to go to. I don't want to whitewash this. We're going to come back to it. But the thing is that our police officers, and I know a lot of them throughout the county, are not from the community.
No.
And we need more community people.
That's right.
I don't care if you're black, white, green, or yellow. We need more people who are from the community so they can identify with their community there's an issue or a problem. Oh, yeah, that's Joe. He drinks all the time. He breaks out. We put him in jail for the night, and he's great the next day.
And you see that I've been blessed with the different law enforcement organizations that I was able to travel the country and see different areas and go to different cities and see how they deal with community policing. You could go to Miami, you could go to Chicago, and Miami's big on it. Miami-Dade is big on it, and Miami Gardens, where the police officer has to live he has to live there. Where they also give you a down money to buy a home in the city,
and to bring your vehicle
home.
So you park right in the front.
Right. So the kids see Officer Jones is home, so they're gonna act a little different.
Right.
They're still gonna act different because they might not know if Officer Jones is home or not.
Right.
So the community acts different. The law enforcement officer acts different because he just can't abuse anybody if he's that type of officer, because he has to come home. He just can't beat up Raekwon and jet up the Putnam Valley.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? No, he got to come home 2 blocks away. So he acts different. So that's what's good, because it builds a relationship. Everybody acts different when everybody is in the neighborhood.
And they're accountable.
They're accountable
because also what happens is, too, you got the store owners who will feel more comfortable.
That's right.
You have the residents, senior citizens who will feel more comfortable.
That's right.
And the whole thing is, and I'm just kind of dating myself because I'm going back in the days where, people, you could go next door and borrow a cup of sugar.
That's right.
You knew half the people in your community.
Right.
Nobody knows anybody.
No, nobody knows anybody.
Nobody won't even talk to anybody. So how could you even tell somebody that they should build housing and you don't know half the people in your community?
Right. And the sad thing about it is, we're all human, and we all bring our ideas on what other races are about.
Yeah.
And if you're not from that community and you just watch what's on TV, or you might hear what your friends might say, or some people might not even have interactions with African Americans ever until they got the job. Right? So they don't know how to interact. They don't know that sometimes African Americans are very handful. Some women might talk with their hands.
Right.
So just them talking with their hands, they think, oh man, they take them down and flip them, and then you have a situation because you don't know the culture. Right. You're not exposed to the culture, and you don't understand the culture. Right. Not saying that you shouldn't work for it, but if you're going to take a job where there's a majority, a certain ethnic group, you should understand that culture. Regardless of the fact, I have a friend of mine whose husband is Italian, and she says, we go through that too, because if he's not, if they didn't know it, they'd think he was a mobster, but he's a detective. Right. Right. So those are the little things that we see in people. That things that we think of other ethnic groups that come up out of us, but how do we control that? We control that with proper training. We control that with policy. We control that with procedure. And we control that with management that has transparency and hold their officers accountable for their actions. And those are the things that we have not been seeing in Westchester County.
All right, just so everybody knows, you might have just came in, I'm here with Damon Jones. Damon, give us your title once again.
I'm the Executive Director of Westchester Blacks in Law Enforcement.
All right. Moving right along, do the officers, are they trained for dealing with community or restraints? Let's talk a little bit about, when you go into domestic violence or you might have a problem with some kids in the community. Are officers trained with knowledge of how to handle that?
Well, we found that depending on the department you are, depending on the officer, some officers are trained to deal with domestic violence issues. Some officers are trained to deal with emotionally disturbed people. Not all officers are trained in those categories. So that creates a problem. You know, how do we adapt the training to our officers that they might meet a situation that they're properly trained for? The whole issue with the use of force is that every law enforcement officer, whether you're a correction officer, whether you're a sheriff or police officer, is trained in the use of deadly force, Article 35, New York State criminal law, that we can take somebody's life. All right, but there's also a continuum of force, meaning for a certain amount of force that is being used against us, we can use a certain amount of force to stop that criminal act. And it goes all the way up from being physically present. Our presence physically is part of that continuum of force, all the way up to using our revolver or our weapon to taking somebody's life. Now the question is, how is the level of training within the police departments with those issues, with the continuum of force and use of deadly force? After the Christopher Ridley case, Westchester County had a use of force panel where it made recommendations to the 43 municipalities, and it also saw flaws in how the 43 municipalities trained their officers after the initial academy. It saw flaws in their process of picking a field training officer. That officer is very, very key, because when the cadet comes to the police department, this field training officer is the one that trains them how to be in the street, how to act in the street. So the panel found flaws in that. But the panel itself was symbolism without substance, because it didn't have any power to force the municipalities to change their training. So even after the Christopher Ridley case, you still had police departments that didn't train their officers on how to act when they're in plain clothes or off duty and they're approached by a uniformed cop. So we saw that the use of force policy and revisions and recommendations didn't really do anything, because what happened after the Christopher Ridley case, you had DJ Henry. And what happened around DJ Henry, you had Sergeant Kaseyadu. And then after that, you had Mr. Chamberlain. So you had, each year, you had an incident that we questioned how officers are being trained in use of force, how officers are being trained in dealing with situations. So now we're saying, okay, fine. We're not blaming the officer, you know, because he could only know what he's being trained in. In the Kaseyadu case, the whole law enforcement community got in an uproar when the news did a clip, and they just had me saying, "Dumb cop." And they said, "Well, why would you call cops dumb?" No, I'm not calling them dumb. But if the institution in which they work is not training them properly, if the chiefs and the commissioners are not taking these recommendations and putting them into play in their police department and updating their policies and procedures, not only on a state level but on a national level, then what do you have on the street?
A dumb cop.
A dumb cop. That's what you have.
Right.
And that it just doesn't put the community in danger. It puts the cop in danger.
True.
Because he doesn't know what he needs to do.
Well, let me ask you this. First and foremost, all of those were people of color. If they were white, would you think the community's attitude would have been a lot different, or the training would have been done? What's your opinion on that?
I don't think the training would ever change, because these situations, when in Westchester have you heard these type of incidents happening in the white neighborhood to a white person? Questionable police shootings of a white person. When have you heard that? Even the studies have shown that they take more restraint when it's a European or Caucasian. You know, so we've seen that these incidents are not happening in the white communities in Westchester. These incidents are not happening, well, outside of the Pace case where one of Darryl Henry's teammates were white, and he was a victim of police brutality in the reaction on what happened to DJ. You know, but that's a whole nother story.
Right.
But right, that's a whole to discuss that paradigm. But the whole thing is, we don't hear these things happening. You know, so you know, we just can't say, well, they're black people, because that's the way they act. I had a retired county police officer email me with the Ridley case, and basically he said it keeps these incidents, because we brought up the issue that black cops off duty or in plain clothes have been shot at or killed by their white counterparts. But that has never happened in the reverse in New York State, where a white cop off duty or in plain clothes was arresting somebody and a uniformed black cop shot him. Right. It never happened. Right. So I received an email from a retired county police officer who basically said that black people don't understand policy and procedure. Basically said we were dumb. So those are the perceptions. You know, you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Those are the perceptions, and this is real. Right. And these are things that we don't want to talk about. You understand? Yeah. We don't want to put it on the table and let's discuss what it really is. Does racism exist in the police department? Hell yeah. If you don't, then tell me why that the cops in New York City was on Facebook calling the Caribbean people at the Caribbean Day Parade animals and all type of different names on Facebook. Now, if they could do that on Facebook with their pictures there, then they feel that there's no recourse for anything else.
Right.
That they're just arrogant like that to put it in there. Now, where's the accountability? You know, we haven't heard from Kelly.
Right.
To say anything, say this is not tolerated in our police force. Right. You understand what I'm saying?
By his officers.
Right.
And they should have been reprimanded.
Right. Nothing. You haven't heard anything.
Or something like that.
Right. So is it okay to have those type of feelings about people that you claim to protect? And are you really protecting us when you come out there? If you have those feelings about us, if you think that we're animals and you think that we should die anyway, so how am I going to protect you? I mean, and how are you going to protect me? And that's when the wall between the community and law enforcement comes up, because they don't see any accountability. They don't see nobody being held accountable for their actions. So then, like I said before, then that's when there's no snitching. Why are we going to tell on our people and y'all not telling on your people? Why you want us to hold our drug dealers and murderers accountable and rat them out to you, when you're not holding the people that abuse our people every day accountable on your side? So let's make a switch. You give us your bad guys, you give me your bad guys. And then maybe we can start from there. You know, but the problem goes all the way up to the DA's office. She has refused to properly investigate any case of police brutality. I had an incident in my own home where probation officers came to my house looking for my wife's cousin. We don't even know how they got our address. But what they did was, they knocked on the door, my wife said, "Who is it?" They said, "We're county police." So she said, "County police?" They said, "Yeah, we got a warrant." She said, "For who?" They said, "For you." So she said, "You can't have a warrant for me. I'm Mount Vernon police. How you gonna have a warrant for me?" So then they decided to change the story because, we got the wrong Negro now. We knocked on the wrong door. Right. So let's try to cover it up. Isn't there, you're impersonating somebody else. Right. Isn't there some type of charges? You know, shouldn't they be reprimanded?
Definitely.
But you know what came out of that? After I wrote the county police, the DA, and the probation commissioner, he just sent a memo out to make sure that they identify themselves correctly. So, oops, Now, what if my wife would have called the police department, said there's 5 strange men in my hallway, and them new young cops that just came out of the academy come up the staircase? Somebody might have got killed.
Right.
Or if my wife pulled out her gun and shot through the door, somebody would have got killed. But there's no accountability for the actions until somebody dies, and then everybody try to cover it up. They try to act like it's never going to happen again. But guess what? Another year, somebody else gets shot. I mean, and my wife, she got away from a situation that could have been ugly, but nobody got reprimanded.
Right. Well, do the county or the state, do they have a group that's like a watchdog for police officers to hold them accountable for what they do?
Well, it's supposed to be the Attorney General's office, but underneath Cuomo, he never investigated any questionable police shootings or cases of police brutality. And we've been outright, including Senator Eric Adams, Senator Ruth Hassel Thompson, trying to get a special prosecutor that will come in and investigate and, if necessary, prosecute cases of police brutality and questionable police shootings. But it's, you know how politics is. You know, it's hard to get that passed. The last time we had one was under Governor Cuomo's father.
Right.
Put one in.
Right.
At the Howard Beach incident.
Right.
You know, years ago. We haven't seen one since.
And that was Hines, wasn't it? From Brooklyn. That was the special prosecutor.
Right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So that was years ago.
Yeah, years ago when we was a lot younger.
Younger. Right. Right.
Yeah, but the thing too that I think that we have to do as a community and people, we have to get out and vote. These people who choose not to do these things, or they don't need to be in office.
No, they don't.
And we need to come together as an organization, as a community, as people, and get these people out of office and let them know. We have to send a message to them.
Right.
If you're not going to do your job and represent all the people,
That's right.
and you're not going to not only represent all the people, you're not going to protect and serve all the people, then you need to go.
Well, everybody need to call out. I mean, I make it plain. Janet DeFiore, this should be her last term. You know, how do you turn investigation over back to the police department? You know, I mean, the DJ Henry case, you turned the investigation over back to the police department. The cases in Yonkers, she turned it back to the police department. The high-profile cases, she turned it back to the police department. Instead of requesting a special prosecutor, requesting somebody to come out. And that is the proper way to do it. But also, you can't be the district attorney and then be a member of the Chiefs Association and think that we're going to sit here and think that you're dealing with us fairly. See, we know the DA's office need the police departments because they handle the investigations. They bring them the cases. So there's a type of relationship there that when they're called to investigate one of their own, they don't do it fairly. See, we cannot trust anything that comes out of there because there's no impartial body to come in and say, all right, he's clear. Fine. You're impartial? We'll deal with that. Or he's guilty. Fine. You're impartial? We'll deal with that. But there hasn't been, in none of the cases, look at all the cases, there hasn't been an impartial body to come in. They've sent an investigation back to the police department. Even dealing with personally, need you investigated. We referred it back to the Department of Probation. How are you going to refer it back to the people that violated me?
Right.
You can't. I mean, that doesn't. All
they're going to do is give them a slap on the wrist.
If they do that, like they did, they got a memo.
Right.
They have a memo. So I'm speaking from personal. I'm speaking from personal experience that something has to change. So now the communities are saying, well, we need a civilian review board of police policies and procedures. Why is that key? Because this is the new phenomenon. It's new to us in Westchester, but it's been going on around the world. Right. Around the world. All the progressive English-speaking countries have some type of civilian review board of their law enforcement. So why are we so behind in America? You know, most of the major big cities have a civilian review board. Even New York City has a civilian. Wow, whether the pros and cons about it, you know, we could argue about that, but they still have one.
Right.
They have one in place.
Right.
We've talked to Astorino, we talked to Ken Jenkins, we talked to elected officials. How can we get this happening? And everybody has danced and hoopla around that situation. So we need to we need the taxpayers. And it's not about being anti-police. It's being pro-police. It's saying that we want the police in our community. We want to make sure that the policies and procedures reflect the real world on what's going on. And it will build a better relationship. People will have faith in the process. People will have faith in the police officers because they know that there's some type of transparency and accountability going on. Because right now there's nothing.
All right, on that note, I have to go. All right, I want to thank you for being a part of Winbrook Pride. If someone wanted to get in contact with you, you have an email and contact number, which we'll give at the end of the closing credits. Okay. Damon?
Thank you, brother.
Thank you once again for being a part of Winbrook Pride. Give us your title.
I'm Damon Jones, Executive Director, Westchester Blacks in Law Enforcement.
All right. I appreciate you coming out and being a part of Winbrook Pride, and I hope that you will continue to watch Winbrook Pride.